All right, folks, it's time for another edition of Sports. That's right. We'll be discussing fantasy football as well as regular football. And of course, we'll be discussing things going on in the world of college sports, including the way that the bowls are being impacted even by COVID, even in the end of 2021. So, yes, it is still having an impact on some of the things that are going on in our sports world as well. And that is definitely still having an impact on a lot of folks, including some of those that are teams from right here in this area as well. As a matter of fact, we do know that Duke was impacted by that, and I think some other schools have been impacted by things as well in that regards, whether it's around fantasy or regular sports, or whether it's around other things that are going on in that sense also. So we are definitely seeing a lot of news impacting what is happening, and definitely we are hearing a lot of things going on in that regards. As a matter of fact, North Carolina State is being impacted in a big way, and they're over there in San Diego and are not having any luck whatsoever with the whole virus and what is done to their season, in the sense of they want to get to a certain amount of wins, and unfortunately that will not be happening, as their game has been 100% canceled, and they were getting ready to go into the game, getting ready to even play the game. As a matter of fact, the decision was made pretty much on game day. So they made that decision today as part of game day and all of that. So that is definitely having a negative impact on that particular sport. And I'm sure it's having a negative impact on other sports as well. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding that in the NHL, some of the season has already been called off. I mean, do for the rest of the season will depend on how things go as we hear more and more of the test results from some of the students and all of that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out and what happens in that regards. But coming back to NC State and what's going on in their world, that's right, North Carolina State, it looks like has been robbed of their opportunity to really make a difference and to really shine in that game that was going to be played in San Diego. So I know that definitely have got friends down there in that San Diego area, including Brian Showman. Who knows? He might have even been planning to go to that game and all of that. But now it will not be happening. So we shouldn't be surprised at this point, given the way that things have gone throughout bowl season. And as recently as earlier to today, we were thinking that the bowl game would be happening and it would be on schedule. But then the news broke that UCLA was pulling out of the Holiday Bowl a little over 4 hours before kickoff was supposed to be. And at that time, the UCLA band was even playing a brunch reception for fans and boosters. Can you imagine being there at a reception and really getting all pumped up for your team and thinking that you're going to play, and then finding out that the game is not going to be happening at all? The Bruins' belated withdrawal due to COVID issues on their defensive line was as jarring as it was unexpected, given that UCLA had lost players to positive tests before leaving Los Angeles, but seemed to make it through bowl week okay. This is now how any of us were supposed to end for the Wolfpack. Even a loss would have been better than this. The chance to at least step out on the field and play one last game for so many players. Their joy in walking around the stadium on Monday was definitely unfettered, and now it has been shattered entirely. This has been, in so many ways, an ideal bowl experience, a true celebration of not just one, but 2 seasons of achievement with so much still on the line. But this is the way of the world in 2021. The ACC has gotten through this football season under a veil of normalcy that has now been pierced, with 4 ACC bowls now canceled. The crux of this is all too familiar to NC State. UCLA has several unvaccinated players, a competitive disadvantage, as the Wolfpack learned the hard way at the College World Series. Even on the other side, the Wolfpack ended up paying the price again, this time through no fault of its own. So this is the second time in 2 separate sports that the Wolfpack have been impacted, and I do remember that they were impacted during that College World Series also. There's a lot at stake. North Carolina State coach Dave Doran said on Monday, some of the decisions we make to try to stay healthy are very important decisions. They're selfless decisions. Our guys have embraced another opportunity to try to beat the odds. That's kind of what's going on when you watch college football. There's a lot of people who aren't getting that done, and these two teams have done that. Well, one of these two teams anyway, according to this article. There's going to be a lot of frustration directed at UCLA for depriving the Wolfpack of a chance to not only finish the season, this two-season journey with a victory, but a springboard to next season, which, with all the players returning, is already one that has got a lot of optimism coming into the next year and all of that. So as the news broke, gray clouds moved in over the harbor, a sharp rain fell, the gloom was pervasive. It will linger long after the Wolfpack returns home as an unsatisfied team and all of that. Speaking of sports, during the kind of Christmas break and everything, I got a chance to catch some of the games. I watched some of the NBA games, and they were definitely very competitive and all of that. So I did get a chance to watch some of those. I also watched some of the NFL games and even caught a little bit of boxing, a sport that I don't always catch on the TV and all of that. But I did catch some of the matches, and they were very close matches. As a matter of fact, one of the matches I watched ended in a split decision. So it definitely has been a chance to do some things that I've not been doing a lot of lately, which is catching some sports events and seeing how the whole sports world is reacting to what is going on, even as we continue now into almost a third year. Because let's see, we started this whole journey in 2020. That's right, last year and everything. And then 2021, the entire year. And now we're going to go into 2022. So I'm thinking March of 2022 would be a whopping 2 years that we have been dealing with this and continue to deal with it. I've heard some speculation that it may go all the way until 2023, 2024, or who knows how long it will go in that regards. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that sense and what we do as we move forward in this whole pursuit of what is going on. So that is some of the things that I'm finding on the sports world. I'm going to check out some other news over there on ESPN and in Yahoo Sports and see what other things that we may find of interest. Of course, we'd love to hear from you and any things that you got going on in your sports world. And I have not forgotten that I do call this the wide world of fantasy football as well as sports in general. So, of course, we're going to mention some things going on in the tougher league and how that is going, even though yours truly is nowhere near being competitive. As a matter of fact, I was out of the race a long time ago, and now I've even been eliminated out of the Sucker Bowl and everything else. So 2021, 2022 season, not the season of championship for Mr. Lee, Mr. Mark Lee, but who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky next year, even though I've only won a couple of contests here and there and have never fully won any like big championship. My brother's won some championships and others have won championships that are in my friend circle, but yours truly has not won at all. So we're going to see how this all plays out as we continue these matches and see what goes on. And of course, I've got to make some picks because we are getting ready to go into another week. I think it's week 16 of a 17-week type deal. By the way, my Vikings are looking like they are trying not to make the playoffs. They need to definitely win on this weekend. They've got a rough opponent this week, and then they need to pull off a victory against the Packers, and that is going to be very difficult as well. So we need a whole lot of help, and hopefully some things will happen in that regards as well. But we're going to see what happens and what goes on in that regards. By the way, the games that are left to play right now include the Bradley's Cowboys against Gonzo's Revenge, Public Enemy against Dem Boys, and of course, Capital Punishment at the Chronic. So one of those, I think, is going to be involving the Sucker Bowl and all of that. And then the other one, of course, will be what happens in the sense of a champion and all of that. So we're going to find out who is the champion in the league and which division they come out of and all of that. So we are heading into the finals where a new champion will be crowned. I don't think it's going to be the champion from last year. So I do think that we are heading toward a new champion. And of course, it'll be interesting to see who the new champion is and what they do in the pursuit of the championship. And hopefully they'll try to defend the championship next year as well. Because sometimes it's getting that 2 years in a row or even getting a championship in general, as I am finding out, can be very, very difficult. So we're going to see what happens and what goes on in that sense. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens and if anybody is able to do some miraculous things and able to just kind of like have a true dynasty, maybe even. That's right. I would call it a dynasty in that sense. But it'll be interesting to see what goes on. And right now, them boys, which I believe is Will Salter's team, is definitely some heavy favorites as they have won 7 games in a row, and their record is 11-2. And that is who's playing those public enemy team and all of that. So we're going to see if there's going to be any sort of upset in that regard. Right now, it is a 7-point spread. So they are definitely favored and all of that. And the other game is featuring Bradley's Cowboys against Gonzo's Revenge. And I'm thinking the two of those will play each other for the championship. And Bradley's Cowboys is the second place team in that cylinder conference behind them boys. And I'm sure they would love to have a shot at going up against their opponent from their own conference and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see if that takes place or does not take place and what goes on in that regard. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens as that should be quite an interesting game and all of that. So, like I said, that game is going to feature Public Enemy against, no, I'm sorry, the Bradley's Cowboys against Gonzo's Revenge. And like I said, Bradley's Cowboy is the second place team over there in the division that Dem Boys is in. And I'm trying to figure out where Gonzo's Revenge is and where they are at in that sense and all of that. So I will look down here and see where they are even they are a top team in the trapezoid division. So they are 10-3 in the trapezoid division and all of that. So that ought to be an interesting match and see what happens in that regards and who takes that title in there and what happens when they go head to head and all of that. So we're very much interested to see what goes on in that regards. And of course, we're all going to see what happens in some of these other matches as well. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how these things transpire and what goes on in that sense. And I'm trying to figure out where Capital Punishment is and the Chronic, since they look like they're the only other ones that are playing as everybody else is on a bye. So I am guessing that that is the Sucker Bowl championship in that regards. And of course, Capital Punishment looked like they had a pretty good year and all of that. As a matter of fact, it looks like they might have finished even with a winning record, but I don't remember them making the whole playoffs. So that is probably why they are in this particular game and all of that. So Capital Punishment is at 5-8. So they definitely would have been having a very bad record and all of that. So for them to make this game against the team that they are playing, the Chronic, is definitely saying a lot. So they were ended the regular season at 5-8 and then made a serious push in the Sucker Bowl. So they were going to definitely look like they're going to collect some money. Now, how much they collect and what happens in this game that they're going to be playing, that ought to be quite interesting and quite a fascinating story to tell. So we're going to see what happens in that regards and what goes on there, because they're playing up against an 8-5 team. So a team that has almost got their record in reverse and all of that during the regular season. So I'm thinking that they're not going to be the favorites, but stranger things have happened, and who knows, that may be the case once again this time around. So it'll be very interesting. We're already seeing things that people are making known and all of that. So as a matter of fact, Mod Squad wrote week 17, 10 toes down, and he says he wants that tougher crown and let's rumble. So that's what they were saying and all of that. I don't think that they actually did all of that well, and it doesn't look like they made it for all of their trash talking and all of that, because I am not even seeing their name in the list. So I'm thinking they probably took that L as well. But I can't talk because I took L's many times in this conference and all of that. So we're going to see what happens and all of that. And definitely people are talking junk. As a matter of fact, Jersey Ballers is asking Carl, who and the hell did you, make really mad for the Chronic and the Cowboys to be beating your teams like this? So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regards as well. So definitely, people are making congratulations and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, the commissioner says it looks like Tuffa will have another first-time champion. So we could be heading to a first-time champion and all of that. So we're going to see if they are a first-time champion. I thought that Will had won a championship in the past, but I could be wrong. It won't be the first time, and it definitely won't be the last time either. But I want to get to the picks and see how I did on the picks and get ready to make the picks for the next to the last week of the NFL and all of that. So I'm going to see how we did with picks last time and get ready to make some other picks. And maybe that's something that I can actually do well in, even though I don't think I'm going to get any points in that either. But we're going to make our pool picks and see how we did last week and what we're going to do this time around. So, hey, and we hadn't even made picks for this week. So this is actually going to be right here. And then we're going to make picks for week 17. And then, of course, we might check and see what we're going to see as the results for week 16. So right now, let's check out and see what our picks were for week 16, as well as how it looked on last week and all of that. So that is going to be interesting because, actually, we did have week picks of last week. So this is the last week of the season. So I was absolutely right when I thought that. And therefore, my Vikings are probably not going to make the playoffs and all of that unless some true miracle happens and the things go in that regards. And at least I'm not at the bottom. So I've actually made some decent picks, not some great picks, but I think I've got a total of 131, and the bottom dwellers have as low as 58, which is the great one, and 94 has got 94. I mean, the great FYG has got 94, and I'm up in somewhere around the middle at 131. Looks like the champions are up there way ahead of me at like 156, and that is Gonzo's Revenge and UV Hustler. So they're doing very well in that regards. I did not do good this week. I think I picked 7, whereas the top person picked like 13. So we got to do a lot better in this, our final week. And I had not made picks this week. So let's see what we're going to say and whether y'all agree with me or not as we get ready to make these picks for this week, the final week of the pool picks and all of that. So if y'all have got some disagreements with me, let me know. Let me know if you think that these picks are just slightly offbeat and don't need to be made in that regard. So I would love to hear y'all's thoughts as I get ready to make them with you right now and here. So we're going to make these picks together, and y'all can tell me what you think of them, whether you agree with them or whether you think that I am not making good picks at all and that I need to give up on the pick game. And then we're going to check and see what's happening in the bowl world as well. You know, we got that big game coming up in a matter of a few days between Alabama and an upstart team that isn't even one of the top power conferences, that being a team out of one of the lower conferences. And I'll be talking about that in a minute. And then we've got 2 of the power players going up against each other. I think a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be Alabama against one of those other teams. But hey, I like the upstart sometimes. And sometimes they can fool you and actually pleasantly surprise you and even pull off major upsets. So we're going to see if that's even a remote possibility and what folks are saying about that particular game. But right now, let's go into the final picks for the last season of the last games of this particular year. So these are games that will be taking place on this weekend, January 2nd. That's right, the first Sunday of the new year and also the close of the NFL season till we get to the playoff picture and all that. Here we've got the Atlanta Falcons at the Buffalo Bills. I think Buffalo really would like to get a win. They're playing at home. Let's pick the Buffalo Bills. The Las Vegas Raiders against the Indianapolis Colts. And this is another home game. I think I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. Jacksonville against the New England Patriots. I'm going to go with the Patriots. Tampa Bay against the New York Jets. That's going to be a good game, I feel. But I think Tampa Bay, who has already clinched their division, will still want to go into the playoffs with a victory. So I'm taking them to win that game. How about the Kansas City Chiefs at the Cincinnati Bengals? Talk about a key and important game. I think this is one, but we're going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Miami Dolphins against the Tennessee Titans, another good game, and I think I'm going to pick Miami to win that one, and that will make the commissioner happy. What about the Philadelphia Eagles against the Washington football team? I think I'm going to go with the Eagles on that one, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regards. The New York Giants at the Chicago Bears, I think I'm going to make my brother happy and pick the Bears in that game. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bears in that particular game and see if that is the case or not. The Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens, talk about a team that needs a win and they're playing at home. That would be the Ravens. They need a win and they need a whole lot of help. I'm picking the Ravens to win that game. And definitely that would be a surprising thing, but that's what I'm calling for, the Ravens to win it. And who knows, maybe they'll slip in the playoffs in the back door and all of that. How about the Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers. I think I'm going to take the Broncos in that one. The Houston Texans at the 49ers. I'm going to go with the 49ers on that one. Big Al will be glad to know that. The Detroit Lions at the Seattle Seahawks. We're taking the Seahawks. The Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys. I'm taking the Cowboys in that one. The Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Definitely the Saints. I wish I could say it was the Carolina Panthers, but they are not doing well at all. And that is why I'm going to have to go with the Saints and go with the logic instead of my heart and all of that. And then, in this case, I'm going to go with the heart. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings over the Green Bay Packers. Sorry about that, Miss Janine. I know you wanted me to pick the Packers. And of course, I thought about it, but I just cannot do it. So this time it's going to be the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm taking the Steelers in that game. So those are my picks that I am sticking with. As a matter of fact, I just hit the submit button. And if anybody thinks that I've made a bad mistake or that I should have made changes, please let me know. And let me know what your thoughts were of those picks and whether you agreed with them or disagreed with them in that sense. So right now we're going to go into some sports news from ESPN and see what they're talking about and all of that. Always glad to give these sports reports, give you an idea of what is going on in the world and all of that. So it looks like the Colts have put an unvaccinated player on the reserve list and all of that. So the Indianapolis Colts have put unvaccinated starting quarterback Carson Wentz on the reserve COVID-19 list. So, this COVID thing is still impacting sports big time and all of that. The Colts have placed starting quarterback Carson Wentz on the reserve COVID-19 list, the team announced earlier today. The NFL and the NFL Players Association on Tuesday adopted the new Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines that will reduce the quarantine time to 5 days from 10 days for all players, including those who are unvaccinated, if they are asymptomatic, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter. Wentz tested positive. A source told Schefter Wentz would still be able to play on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders as long as the positive test took place Monday and he is asymptomatic under the new protocols. Wentz has not shed light on why he remains unvaccinated. He missed some time before the start of the regular season because he was a close contact to someone who tested positive in the Colts organization. I'm not going to go into depth on why, but I will say it's a personal decision for me and my family, Wentz said in early September. I respect everybody else's decision, and I just ask that everybody does the same for me. I know that's not the world we live in. Not everyone is going to equally view things the same. But yeah, no one really knows what's going on in someone else's household and how things are being handled. It's a personal decision. That's just where I'm at on it. And with the protocols and everything the way they are, really for us, it's about understanding them clearly and making sure they are dotting our I's and crossing our T's. If Wentz can't play, rookie Sam Ehlinger, barring the Colts bringing in a quarterback from the outside or going with practice squad quarterback Brett Hundley, will start against the Raiders. Ehlinger missed the start of the regular season because of a near injury suffered in a preseason game at Detroit. His most extensive playing time has been in the final minutes of games that have already been decided. Going through the plan, he goes through it. What are your top calls that you feel comfortable with? Don't have to be all of them. Colts offensive coordinator Marcus Brady said about Ehlinger before Wentz's announcement on Tuesday. We have that separate call sheet for him ready to go. He goes through all the reads like Carson does. He's ready to go. The Colts, like many other teams around the NFL, have been hit hard with players going on the reserve COVID-19 list. Wentz is the 13th player currently on the list for the Colts. Linebacker Darius Leonard, guards Quentin Nelson and Mark Glowinski, right tackle Brandon Smith, safety Kerry Willis, and cornerback Rock Yazin are other starters currently out because of COVID-19. Leonard, Nelson, and Smith were all unvaccinated as of earlier this season. This is what we prepare for hitting adversity like this, things you don't expect. But this is probably in the category of something that we could expect, and it would be just a matter of time before it was going to hit us, Colts coach Frank Reich said. So we just need to continue to focus at a very high level. Can't allow this to be a distraction. Understand how important it is, and let's just stay focused on what we have to do. The Colts, 9-6, winners of 8 of their past 10 games, are currently the 5th seed in the AFC playoff race. Only one game separates the 5th and the 11th seeds in the AFC. the Colts can lock up a playoff spot with a victory over the Raiders on Sunday. The playoff race is close, and I feel like the teams that can handle the COVID-19 situation are going to be the ones that are going to be able to get into the playoffs. Colts defensive lineman DeForest Buckner said after Saturday's victory over Arizona. Key players all around the league are out. It's all about depth. I mean, there's no doubt that it's about depth and all of that. By the way, the Jacksonville Jaguars are to talk to Doug Peterson and Jim Caldwell about the head coaching job and request interviews with others. The Jaguars coaching search got rolling on Tuesday as they scheduled an interview with Super Bowl winning coach Doug Peterson for later in the week. And they will also interview former head coach Jim Caldwell and put in requests to interview multiple candidates who are currently employed, sources told ESPN. A leak source told ESPN's Dan Grazzano that the Jaguars intend to interview Peterson later this week. Peterson went 42-37-1 in the season as Philadelphia's head coach between the years of 2016 and 2020 and led the Eagles to a victory over the New England Patriots in Super Bowl L22. And I can't remember what that is. That might be 52 if I remember and all of that. But if y'all remember, correct me and let me know and all of that things along those lines. As a matter of fact, I may look that up in a second and find out what I see in that regards. A league source told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler the league plans to interview former Indianapolis Colts and Detroit Lions head coach Jim Caldwell as well. League sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter that the Jaguars requested permission to interview Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, and Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. The Jaguars also have requested an interview with Colts defensive coordinator Matt Eberfloss, a source told ESPN, confirming the report by the NFL Network. The NFL passed a resolution earlier this month that allows interviews for vacant head coaching positions to be conducted virtually during the final 2 weeks of the regular season. Teams could request permission for interviews beginning Tuesday, but teams are also able to deny permission. The Jaguars fired Urban Meyer with cause just before 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 16 after he went 2-11 and committed a string of embarrassing missteps that included 2 viral videos of him behaving inappropriately with a woman who wasn't his wife, reports of him berating his assistant coaches, trying to hire a strength coach who was accused of making racist remarks, and bullying black players at Iowa, and having number 1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence alternate days with the first team with Gardner Minshew during training camp. Former kicker Josh Lambo on December 5th also accused Meyer of kicking him during warm-ups before an August practice, an allegation that Meyer has disputed. A spokesperson for owner Shad Khan released a statement to the Associated Press that said Khan made the decision to fire Meyer after the Jaguars' 20-0 loss in Tennessee on December 12th. So this is definitely not the way you want to go out of your season and all of that, but we're going to see what happens in that regards as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts around sports and what your teams are doing, and if you're happy with what they're doing as well. So if you've got any thoughts about that, we would love to hear your thoughts and what you are doing in that regard. So definitely love to hear what folks think and all of that. And I was right. The L does mean 50, so that means that we've had 52 Super Bowls. So or 52 games of that sense. So L and the 2 I's, which is the each one being a 1, that would be 52. Man, that's a lot of games and championships and all of that. But it'll be interesting to see who is crowned the champion this time. By the way, Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach Bruce Arians has tested positive for COVID-19, the team announced earlier today. Arians is isolated at home. He told ESPN he is okay and dealing with mild symptoms, mainly a cough. I tested positive for COVID-19 this morning, but have only experienced mild symptoms to the point, Arians said in a statement issued by the team. Assistant head coach and run game coordinator Harold Goodwin will handle Arians' duties on an interim basis. I have complete confidence in him and the rest of our coaching staff to prepare the team for this week's game against the Jets, Arians said in his statement. I look forward to rejoining the team and being back in the facility as soon as I can test back in. Aaron, 69, has had multiple health issues in his career, including a prostate cancer diagnosis in 2007, a skin cancer diagnosis in 2013, and renal cell carcinoma that required part of his kidney to be removed in 2017. He was required to undergo a physical to ensure he was healthy enough to coach the Buccaneers before accepting the job in 2019 and has not had any documented health concerns while in Tampa. Aarons is the second member of the Bucs coaching staff to test positive this week. On Monday, wide receiver Kevin Garver tested positive, as did wide receiver Mike Evans. Goodwin has worked with Aaron since 2007 when he was the offensive line coach and quality control coordinator when Aaron was an offensive coordinator with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went with Aaron to the Indianapolis Colts, where he served as offensive line coach when Aaron was offensive coordinator and interim head coach. He was then Aaron's offensive coordinator with the Arizona Cardinals from 2013 to 2017. On Tuesday, the Bucs announced that cornerback Sean Murphy, Bunton, and Jamel Deans would be placed on the reserve COVID-19 list, bringing the total for Buccaneers players and coaches to 7, as last week's defensive lineman Raheem Nunez Rachez and kick returner Jalen Darden were placed on the list. And like I did mention earlier, the NFL and the NFL Players Association have reached an agreement to set isolation times at 5 days for all players who test positive for COVID-19, matching new guidelines announced Monday by the Centers for Disease Control. So I'm sure that people will be following that story as well. By the way, we're talking about another sport. Boston Bruins' Brad Marchand rips the NHL for Nixon participation in the 2022 Winter Olympics. Boston Bruins winger Brad Marchand became one of the most prominent NHL players to openly criticize the league's decision to opt out of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing uh, because of the COVID-19 postponements. Marchand tweeted a statement on Tuesday that questioned the logic behind the NHL and NHLPA agreeing to add testing squads to supplement rosters that are missing players thanks to COVID-19 protocols while refusing to do the same during the Olympics. Marchand believes that this type of supplemental roster planning wasn't considered for the Olympics and that the league could have allowed players to leave for Beijing while teams made up postponed games during what was intended to be an Olympic break. The NHL and the NHLP agreed to allow players to compete in the 2022 and 2026 Winter Olympics in their latest collective bargaining agreement, which was forged last year. The NHL and NHLPA can change the rules of the CBA to add a taxi squad so they don't miss any games and don't lose any money, which has already been agreed upon by the players that the players will pay back in escrow until the owners are made whole from what they have lost during this pandemic, regardless of how many games are missed. Yet they can't do a taxi squad during the Olympics, so they can honor the agreement that they made so the NHL players can go to Beijing, according to Marchand. Please tell me that's not bullshit. Marchand said the players should have been given the choice to forfeit their pay while competing at the Olympics. NHL and NHLPA agreed not to participate in the Beijing Olympics last week, citing a material change in the NHL regular season schedule due to COVID-19. The National Hockey League respects and admires the desire of NHL players to represent their countries and to participate in a best-on-best tournament. Accordingly, we have waited as long as possible to make this decision while exploring every available option to enable our players to participate in the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. And that's definitely what they're saying. And they said NHL. Wow. They said the NHL has postponed 70 games through Tuesday. Marchand has also made noise about the NHL's testing protocols, which were recently tightened to daily testing, while other leagues have loosened their testing standards when it comes to asymptomatic vaccinated players. We definitely have to get to that, Marchand said on Sunday. The NBA is there. The NFL is going there now. We're going to be next. We have to get there soon. If guys are fine, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to play. It's tough. This whole thing's tough. There's a valid argument on both sides. This could be the new norm with the variants coming around every year. It's something we're going to have to live with. We can't be doing this year in, year out. At some point, we're on the team outside, and we were out there checking that out and all of that. So, but let me see what this quote says. It's tough. This whole thing's tough. There's a valid agreement on both sides. This could be the new norm with the variants coming around every year. It's something we're going to have to live with. We can't be doing this year in, year out. At some point, we have to get back to some normalcy. Guys have done what they're supposed to do and got vaccinated and all of that stuff. Now, up there in Philadelphia, the Eagles are keeping quarterbacks Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, and Reedy Sennett in separate rooms at the North Care complex. So, man, they're keeping a lot. The Eagles are keeping quarterbacks Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, and Reed Sennett in separate rooms at the NovaCare complex amid the surge in coronavirus cases around the country. And the NFL coach Nick Sirianni said, "We're going to make some adjustments. I'm not there 100% yet because I don't have to be quite yet with the players not being back yet. But we're going to definitely make even more adjustments than what we need to just keep everybody safe," he said. The quarterback's going to make his own decisions. So they're saying the quarterbacks will be in separate rooms. We're going to have to be even more safe with them being in separate rooms. The Eagles quarterback meetings are now entirely virtual. They not only keeps the quarterbacks apart, but also Sirianni and offensive coordinator Shane Stitchen, the offensive play callers, in separate rooms. All three quarterbacks will continue to attend practice. The Eagles 8-7 played the Washington football team on Sunday. It's the second matchup between these two teams in 12 days after their first meeting was moved to Sunday from Sunday to Tuesday, December 21st, following a COVID-19 outbreak with Washington. Gilbert Kilbrook got the start in the game with starters Taylor. So it says that the Eagles won that game 27-17, and after the beating the New York Giants on Sunday, now have a 65% chance of making the playoffs. Washington, meanwhile, has just a 6% chance of So they're saying that Washington, meanwhile, has a 6% chance of qualifying for the postseason after dropping three straight. But the Eagles now have a 65% chance of making the playoffs. But they did acknowledge the Eagles have. It says Eagles currently have 8 players on the reserve COVID-19 list, including defensive ends Derek Barnett, Ryan Kerrigan, and Taryn Jackson. Philadelphia began implementing more intensive protocols a couple of weeks ago as the number of cases league-wide began to tick up, including holding team meetings in the practice bubble as opposed to the smaller auditorium and switching certain meeting rooms to allow for more social distancing. So that is some of the things that are going on even in the world of sports. Philadelphia. A lot of these teams are doing different things and like holding these Zoom meetings and things along that nature. So somebody said that they're going to be, Tom Brady might get fined. Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady not only went viral when he threw his Microsoft Surface tablet in Tampa Bay's Week 15 shutout loss to the New Orleans Saints, he also got a warning from the NFL. I did get a warning from the NFL, Brady said with a chuckle on his Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray on Sirius team. Yeah, Brady was chuckling. He said, "I did get a warning from the NFL," and he said that on a podcast. And he's also apologized for the event, which he said was done out of frustration after he threw an interception late in the fourth quarter. It rendered the device useless and required a replacement. I won't throw another Surface, Brady said, although I think it was pretty good marketing for the Surface at the end of the day. I think it worked out pretty well for them. The NFL didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on Brady's remarks. The Saints won 9-0, giving Brady his first shutout loss in 15 seasons. To add insult to the tablet's unfortunate injury, in a tweet that has since been deleted, Saints safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson posted, "Hey, at Microsoft and Service, can't y'all send me a new Service tablet? I need to give it to a friend who broke his. Thank you and Merry Christmas. Hmm. Yeah, they're having fun. Saints safety once again said, "Hey, Microsoft and Service, can y'all send me a new Surface tablet? I need to give it to a friend who broke his. Thank you and Merry Christmas." Microsoft support responded, "We've reviewed the tape, and while we don't recommend throwing your Surface, even if your friend holds the NFL record for career completions, here are some tips on caring for your Surface." The NFL has been using the Microsoft Surface as its exclusive tablet since 2014, a deal that cost Microsoft $400 million. Hmm. I wonder if my Vikings can slip into the playoffs. Highly unlikely. Every year around this time, there's that whole thing about carousel jobs and who's going to be keeping their job or not keeping their job. And, we got the whole thing going on with the Jaguars, and there's some other teams that might be looking for coaches as well. I wonder if one of those players or coaches might be the coach of the Minnesota Vikings. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens or not. And definitely every team has a player that they feel that they can't uh, win without, and it's interesting to see who those players are. We'll pull up a couple of those and see who some of these players are. Apparently, for the Anaheim Ducks, the most indispensable is Troy Terry. I know what you're thinking. John Gibson, Trevor Zegras, Ryan Getzlaff, all of them are pretty integral to Anaheim's success too. The tag here goes to Terry for his consistency. When you're a player producing like that, like he does, Terry has 10 more goals than anyone else on the Ducks and a gaudy 24-3 shooting advantage. It's hard to imagine rolling along without that talent in your lineup. How about the Boston Bruins? Most indispensable, Brad Marchand. Probably no one likes playing against Marchand. Guys sure do like playing with him, though. Marchand has scored at a nice clip all year, 27 points in 21 games, and he's one of the Bruins' key leaders, setting a tone that means even more when Boston's struggling for consistency, as it has. Marchand's voice is valued as much as his contributions, and that's difficult to replace. What about the Carolina Hurricanes? Probably the most indispensable, Frederick Anderson. Great goaltending goes a long way, and Carolina has been getting some of the Anderson's best hockey this season. Anderson's members have definitely been really decent numbers and all of that. So great goaltending goes a long way. There's no doubt about that. And his numbers have been great. A .930 save percentage and a 1.93 goal against over 21 starts. And Carolina has given up the fewest goals on average in the league, 2.14. Henderson has been the Hurricanes' backbone, and they'll need that to continue when he returns from COVID-19 protocols. As far as the Blackhawks, most is indispensable, Seth Jones. The thing about Jones is that Chicago doesn't have another player like him. The Blackhawks have scorers, Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane. They have a solid goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury and good young depth players. But a defenseman like Jones, who can play over 25 minutes per night in every situation at an elite level and be the team's third highest scorer with 23 points in 30 games, as Beyonce would say, he's irreplaceable. Now, what about the Columbus team and the Columbus Blue Jackets? Most indispensable, Zach Werenski. Losing a defenseman of Seth Jones' caliber hurt Columbus. Still having Werenski helps make up for it. The Blue Jays would be adrift without their top pair defenseman. From the minutes he eats up, 26 and 29 per night, to his 5-5 contributions, to his work on special teams. He's simply the best Columbus has. What about the Edmonton Oilers? Most indispensable, Connor McDavid. I know, Leon Draisaitl. But David is arguably the best hockey player in the world. Good luck finding someone who can do all that he does as well as he does it. And then right up here we've got, as we head to now the Florida Panthers. In a season in which the Panthers have been consistently atop the NHL standings and sometimes dealt with injuries to Alexander Barkov, Anthony Duclair, Sergio Bobrovsky, and others, Habendera has been a constant. Habendera's 33 points in 29 games not only ensures the production he provides, it also provides the best ability is availability. We're going to put a couple of these other teams, and then you can go and check out this article and everything. But for the Montreal Canadiens, the most indispensable is Nick Suzuki. Suzuki is one of just two Montreal forwards who played all 31 games this season, and his 18 points leads the team. On a 7-win club, Suzuki has been a small beacon of light. As for the Nashville Predators, the most indispensable is Josas Soros. Soros has been something special for the Predators. Nashville owns the league's best winning percentage in one-goal games, .786, a sign of just how valuable Soros' clutch goaltending has been to his team's push up the standings, and Soros is no slouch in the stats department with a .924 save percentage and a 2.22 GAA. So we're going to check out some of these other ones around. How about the Ottawa Senators? Drake Batherson is their most indispensable. It's mid-December, and Batherson is 13th in points per game, 1.22, right behind Austin Matthews. The Senators don't have many like Batherson, with 28 points in 23 games for outpaces anyone else's in Ottawa's. And what about the Tampa Bay Lightning? Most indispensable is Andre Vasilevsky. Steven Samaskis is having a great year. Victor Hedman is finding his form. Tampa has overcome a plethora of injuries to still be one of the NHL's best teams. Why Vasilevsky? He has recorded the fewest losses this season, 4 among goalies with at least 20 starts, and weathered the upheaval in front of him with a .297 save percentage. The Lightnings are a deep club, but no one can do what Vasilevsky can. And then the Tampa Maple Leafs, their most indispensable is Jack Campbell. No disrespect to Peter Mrazek, who's been dealt a tough hand with injuries this season, but there is no one in Toronto who can truly replace what Campbell brings to the Leafs crease. The netminder has seen his team through the ups and downs so far while producing some elite numbers, .937 save percentage, 1.94 GAA, and Toronto won't be where it is without Campbell, where the Leafs' hopes would be hampered by his COVID-19 layoffs. And then the most indispensable for the Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes. I wanted to put Bruce Boudreau here, is what the article says, but that's against the rules. So we'll go with Hughes, who's quietly been putting together a good season, while everyone has been distracted by Vancouver's general disarray, per Bruce at least. Hughes has had many of his best assets on display lately, from strong cycling to high-end playmaking to solid defending. And Boudreau clearly trusts Hughes, reflected in heavy ice time north of 26 minutes per game. That's a lot of minutes and all of that. That is a whole lot. Let's get to one of the college games. How about Texas Tech? College football bowl games sometimes create uncomfortable dance partners, whether it's a coach facing his former team, schools playing for a second time in a single season, or one-time rivals finally meeting again after tradition was shoved aside for conference realignment. But perhaps no bowl matchup has been as uncomfortable as Mississippi State playing Texas Tech in Memphis, Tennessee at 6:45. So they're going to play very shortly. It will be the first time Bulldogs coach Mike Leach faces the Red Raiders after Texas Tech officially fired him in December 2009 for his alleged mistreatment of a player suffering a concussion. At the time, Texas Tech officials claimed they fired Leach with cause and owed him nothing. Leach and his lawyers still contend that Tech owes him millions of dollars for what he was due under the terms of his contract. They still owe me for 2009, the last time they won 9 games, so maybe they'll deliver the check, Leach said earlier this month. So we'll see what happens at the Liberty Bowl. Leach, who has a law degree from Pepperdine, is still fighting that legal battle a dozen years later, and he doesn't seem ready to quit anytime soon. He is offered to settle with Texas Tech for $2.4 million, which would include an $800,000 longevity bonus he was set to receive the day after he was fired, plus about $1.6 million in other incentives he said he was owed. Leach, 60, was the winningest coach in Texas Tech history with 84 victories from 2009 to 2000. From 2000 to 2009 when he was fired. It is undisputable they owe me the money. No one can dispute that, Leach told ESPN on Monday. When it comes to the money, they don't just owe me the $2.4 million. They actually owe me for 4 more years. But I've always said that I'd settle for the $2.4 million and an acknowledgement that I didn't do anything wrong. In January 2011, a Texas appeals court ruled Leach couldn't sue for monetary damages because Texas Tech is a state entity with sovereign immunity. The next year, the Texas Supreme Court rejected Leach's appeal without comment. So he's having a difficult uphill fight and all of that. We're going to see what happens in this regards, and I'm sure that people are definitely looking for a major matchup and what will happen in that regards. Speaking of college football, this year's college football playoffs is bringing some welcome new blood to the proceedings. Yes, Alabama is involved once more. Nick Saban's Crimson Tide have been part of 7 of the 8 college football playoffs and all of that, and are the top seed for the 5th time. But Georgia is participating for only the 2nd time, and 2 schools, Michigan and Cincinnati, are making their playoff debut. That means that F3 programs have now qualified for the CFP, while we wait to see if a 5th school can join a list of CFP champions alongside Bama 3 times, Clemson twice, Ohio State once, and LSU once. There is definitely going to be some interesting things going on in that regard. So we're going to see what happens in that regards, and if they are able to make some noise and not be one of the champions that has already been out there. So there's some new blood, and maybe we'll get a new champion. It'll be quite interesting to see if that happens or does not happen. And I'm sure that others are going to be curious about that as well. So let us know what your thoughts are about the college championship and who you would like to win the college championship. Maybe you've got a favorite in your own mind and all of that. So I would love to hear your thoughts around the championship and who you are looking for to win and all of that. So definitely have some people that are making some comments, and they're coming at us from looks like YouTube. So want to thank Roberto and looks like a Russian name, and Zori, for joining our conversation. But we're going to wrap things up and get ready to wrap this whole thing up. And I hope that y'all have been enjoying some of this sports news, including some sad sports news and all of that. I do want to get to the NBA and see what was happening in maybe some of their news before we get out of here and all of that. So the Cavaliers might be too big to fail. So that is one of the things that they've got a very tall lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go, because they are now they're doing some unusual things. They started apparently the small ball trend, and now they might be contending for home court. Wouldn't it be interesting if the Cavaliers made it in that regard and LeBron had to go through them or something like that? So that would be quite interesting. So in September, the Cleveland Cavaliers coaching staff checked in for a stay at the Nemacolin Resort, which is this fancy resort over in Pennsylvania. And they checked in for a stay and enjoyed absolutely none of it. For days, the group led by Coach J.B. Bickerstaff was holed up in a conference room watching film, studying analytics, and working through meals. It's a really nice place, but we mostly worked. Preseason coaching retreats are common in the NBA, but the mission the Cavs had for the trip was not. In a league that has been on a decade-long march to get smaller and faster, the Cavs were workshopping how they were going to get bigger. Bigger, in fact, than anything the NBA has seen in generations. So what began inside a hotel conference room some 70 miles south of Pittsburgh has knocked a procession of teams off balance throughout a league that has become infatuated with small ball. Using a starting lineup featuring 3 7-footers and integrating a former All-Star big man, the Cavs have big-footed their way into Eastern Conference contention. And that's definitely going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And more teams maybe don't go that way and try to get taller and all of that. And we're talking about the COVID thing impacting the NFL, is also impacting the NBA. So the Brooklyn Nets announced Tuesday that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and LaMarcus Aldridge had cleared the NBA's health and safety protocols. Aldridge has been in the protocol for 2 weeks, while Durant and Irving both entered them 10 days ago. Brooklyn had a massive COVID-19 outbreak across its roster, with more than 10 players entering the protocols at the same time. That caused the NBA to postpone 3 Nets games in a row: home games against the Denver Nuggets and Washington Wizards, and a road game against the Portland Trail Blazers, before Brooklyn returned to the court for Saturday's Christmas Day win over the Los Angeles Lakers and Monday's victory over the LA Clippers. The Nets will next play Thursday at home against the Philadelphia 76ers, the last opponent Durant played against before going in the protocols. He scored 34 points to go with 11 rebounds and 8 assists to lead the shorthanded Nets to a 114-105 victory. While Durant will likely be on the court for the game, Irving will not be, as he is still unable to play in games at either Barclays Center or Madison Square Garden because of his failure to comply with New York City's COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Given that he is unvaccinated, Irving can only play in games outside of New York and Toronto, meaning the first time he could take the court this season will be January 5th in Indianapolis against the Pacers. Net coach Steve Nash said recently Irvin will need a week or two to ramp back up after exiting the protocols. Irvin hasn't officially been with the team since the preseason when Brooklyn decided to send him away rather than play him in only road games. The Nets changed their minds recently, however, saying that the circumstances of the season and with so many players being out due to COVID-19 sweeping through the league led them to a reverse course. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. Utah Jazz guard Jordan Clarkson sealed a win after San Antonio Spurs fans crossed the line. So those fans, you got to watch out for those fans. Jordan Clarkson helped lift the lost shorthanded Utah Jazz over the Spurs after he got into a confrontation with a Spurs fan he said crossed the line on Monday. Clarkson, who is from San Antonio, was upset by a non-call on a shot attempt and did not run down court in time to prevent a three-pointer from Doug McDermott with 4 minutes remaining. Utah called a timeout as San Antonio pulled within 94-80, at which point the fans stood up and yelled at Clarkson. After initially ignoring the fan and walking towards the Jazz bench, Clarkson said the fan crossed the line with his comments but did not repeat what the fan said. Clarkson stopped, turned, and began walking toward the fan until his teammates rushed to hold him back and security got between the two. Security escorted the fan out. The guys just keep antagonizing me, like almost challenges me, like, what you gonna do, Clarkson said. After saying a bunch of stuff, I make money. I ain't trying to lose no money. I'm gonna lose more money than he's gonna lose. He's probably just gonna get kicked out of the game. We're playing basketball, having a good time. Fans got to learn we're human. We're people too. Stuff like that just can't fly. Clarkson, who scored 23 points for a Jazz team missing injured guard Donovan Mitchell, sealed the 110-104 win with a pair of free throws soon after the confrontation. Mitchell is expected to miss at least 2 games after straining his back in the first quarter of Saturday's win over Dallas. Utah has now won 12 of its past 14 games and sits just 3 games back of the Golden State Warriors for the best record in the Western Conference. And last but not least, Phoenix Suns center DeAndre Ayton has landed a new Puma shoe deal with Charitable Focus. After first signing with Puma in 2018 to help relaunch its basketball category, Phoenix Suns center DeAndre Ayton has landed a multi-year footwear and apparel endorsement deal to continue his partnership with the brand. It's pretty lit. It's truly a blessing as well. The reason I signed with Puma from the beginning is I wanted to be different. The new deal negotiated by agent Nima Namakin of Innovate Sports Group is expected to place Ayton among the league's top 3 highest paid athletic brand endorsements at the center position. Prima has been finding his footing in the hoop space after a nearly 2-decade hiatus from landing any NBA endorsers, and Ayton has long had an affinity and familiarity with the company. Growing up in the Bahamas, the first brand really that I wore was Puma. That's all we saw was Puma. So he was definitely a Puma fan, even growing up back then and all of that. So he's definitely a Puma fan, a guy like Usain Bolt, who I looked up to as a star of the Caribbean and the face of Caribbean when it comes to sports. That's the only thing he was repping. Puma was every year. So it looks like he's definitely a fan of Puma and all of that. So and it looks like they're also doing some other things as well. Let's see what Puma had to say. They said, we wanted to be disruptive, putting our brand back in the mix after several years with the strategy to sign top draft picks who are not only elite athletes, but also fit well with our brand's goal of merging sports with culture, said Adam Petrick, Puma's global brand director of brand and marketing. DeAndre was a big part of our plan. He checked all the boxes for us then and now as Puma. Hoops continues to grow. We are truly excited to continue to have Deandra as part of our Puma family. So that's one of the news in that regard. Hope that y'all have enjoyed this sports report and all of that. I'm getting ready to get out of here. Of course, next week, and the 1st of 2022, we might bring you some news around cricket and things along that line as well. I did want to get at least one other international sports news and all of that. And that is that Mohamed Saleh had a penalty saved while Sadio Mane made questionable decisions throughout Liverpool's 1-0 loss at Leicester on Tuesday. So that is some of the news coming out in that regards and in that sense. And it looks like Sea Palace beat Norwich 3-0. And it does look like there is a 1-1 match that has been going on between Southampton and Tottenham, and West Ham beat Watford 4-1. And those are some of the things that are happening in the world of soccer and all of that. So that's some of the soccer scores. And of course, we'll try to follow that sport as well as other sports, including cricket, in the near future. And of course, we're going to try to bring some athletes in to talk about their experiences as well. But right now, we're getting ready to get on out of here. So I'm going to bring up one of the out of here outros. I think I'll bring up the thing about sports or using actually, let's bring up something about art. Art is always good, and then we'll get the 30-second clock on out of here.
Welcome to Indie Artists United. I am Victor Jones, the founder, and we're here to make your dreams a reality. Are you an independent music artist with stagnant streams on musical platforms, lack of followers, lack of support, and now your motivation for music has drained you? Well, listen, all you need is a support system and a network who really cares about you. Look no further, because IAU is the place for you. IAU offers the artist the IAU playlist, where diverse listening audiences streams the playlist to increase royalties for each artist. Then, the Artist of the Week. Also, the award show, where each artist has the opportunity to become a chart topper. Then, networking and collaborations with other artists throughout the world. What are you waiting on? Join us today. It's all free. All you have to do is download the app. Don't meet me there. Beat me there.